Check.
Here is the current Loopology manifesto text we built. Loopology, the science of creative recursion. Loopology begins at the origin point where sound stops being something outside of you and becomes something you can enter. That is the first doorway. Before it becomes a brand, before it becomes a manifesto, before anyone tries to explain it as a method, a system, or a process, it begins with a moment of recognition. A loop comes back around, and instead of hearing the same thing again, you hear it differently. You hear what changed, you hear what the silence did, you hear what the drums did to the sample, you hear what the bass revealed, you hear what your own timing added to the machine. That is where Loopology started for me. It did not begin as an academy. That idea may come one day, but this is not that moment yet. Right now, Loopology is at its foundation stage. It is the naming of a creative science that has already been happening in the room, in the headphones, in the hands, in the wires, in the machines, and in the instinct to keep going back into the sound until it becomes something more honest. It is not a school pretending to have all the answers. It is not a polished institution standing at the end of the road. It is the road itself. It is the beginning of the documentation. It is the science behind the process. The phrase creative recursion matters because it describes what I believe happens when sound returns with memory. A loop is not just a repeated piece of audio. A loop is a returning event. It comes back through the system, but each return is affected by what now surrounds it. A drum loop changes when the bass enters. A bass line changes when a sample leans against it. A sample changes when it is filtered, chopped, masked, delayed, or buried under texture. A phrase that sounded simple the first time can become emotional the fifth time because the listener has travelled with it. That is recursion. It is the return of an idea after the system has changed. This is why loopology is not only about looping. Looping is the surface. Recursion is the deeper science. Looping says, this sound repeats. Recursion says, this sound returns transformed by context. That is the difference. Repetition can become boring when nothing around it changes. Recursion creates movement inside return. It allows the same piece of sound to carry more meaning each time it comes back. It lets a beat stay familiar while the emotional weight keeps shifting underneath it. That is the science I'm interested in. My work is not about making music that sounds perfect in a sterile way. I'm not trying to remove every rough edge, every human push, every lean, every small imperfection that tells the listener a real person is inside the process. I care about timing, but I do not worship the grid. I care about beats being on point, but I do not believe everything has to be locked down by quantization to have power. A groove can breathe. A beat can lean forward. A snare can hit with attitude because it is not sitting in a mathematically frozen place. The pocket is not always found by correcting the human out of the music. Sometimes the pocket is found by trusting the human inside the machine. That is important to loopology. The machine is part of the system, but the machine is not the master. The DAW can organize. The MPC-1 Plus can chop, hold, sequence, and reshape samples. The Boss RC505 MK2 can catch a performance and let it multiply in real time. The speakers can expose what is weak. The headphones can reveal what is hidden. The room can color the truth. But the creator still has to decide what matters. The creator still has to listen. The creator still has to know when to leave something alone, when to cut something out, when to let silence do the work, and when to bring the loop back in like a statement. That is where the science becomes personal. When I talk about the science behind loopology, I'm talking about the way sounds interact with each other. I'm talking about masking, where one sound partially hides another. Not always as a mistake, but sometimes as a deliberate creative choice. I'm talking about mashing different textures together until they form one new identity. I'm talking about the strange power of sounds that should not belong together but find a shared gravity when they are placed in the right relationship. I'm talking about samples that are chopped, stacked, filtered, dirtied, and reintroduced until they stop being borrowed fragments and become part of a new language. In my process, sound is often layered in a way that feels physical. A drum stem may carry the skeleton, a bass stem may carry the weight, a sample stem may carry the memory, a texture stem may carry the atmosphere. That does not mean every track has to be overloaded. In fact, loopology depends on restraint. Space is part of the composition. Silence is not empty. Dropouts are not accidents. A dropout can make the listener lean in. A pause can make the return hit harder. A missing element can create more tension than a crowded arrangement. The science is knowing that subtraction is sometimes more powerful than addition. That is one of the first laws of loopology as I understand it. The loop needs air. A loop that has no air becomes a cage. A loop with air becomes a room. Inside that room, the listener can move. The beat can breathe. The sample can hold the background. The bass can sit underneath the kick without fighting for control. The texture can be felt more than heard. The whole thing can remain raw, dark, direct and alive without needing to become glossy or overproduced. Sometimes the best sound is not the biggest sound. Sometimes the best sound is the one that knows exactly where to stand. Loopology is also about ownership of the creative space. That means more than owning equipment. A person can own a room full of gear and still not own their sound. Ownership begins when you understand why you are making the choices you are making. Why is this sample here? Why is this drum dry? Why is the bass mostly centered? Why is the texture low? Why does the loop return here and not earlier? Why does the beat drop out before the next phrase? Why does the imperfection stay? Why does the roughness matter? These questions turn button pressing into language. That is what I want loopology to become. A language for creators who work through sound. Not every creator needs a conservatory. Not every creator needs a traditional studio. Not every creator needs to wait for a label, a gatekeeper, a classroom, or a perfect setup. Some creators need a method that begins where they are. Some need a way to take what is already in the room and build from it. Some need a process that respects instinct but gives it structure. Some need to understand that the loop is not a shortcut. It is a discipline. It is a mirror. It shows you what you repeat, what you avoid, what you return to, and what you are willing to transform. That is why this manifesto matters to me. It gives shape to something that could easily be misunderstood as just making beats, just looping, just sampling, or just experimenting with gear. Loopology is deeper than that. It is a way of approaching sound as a living system. It is the study of how repetition becomes meaning. It is the practice of turning fragments into structure. It is discipline of listening to what comes back around and asking what changed. The origin point of loopology is not only technical, it is emotional. Music has a way of becoming a container for what people carry. Grief, pressure, survival, faith, memory, frustration, joy, identity, and resilience can all enter the loop. A sound can hold something that words cannot always explain. A beat can create order when life feels scattered. A sample can feel like a piece of the past being brought into the present and given a new purpose. A guitar can return after years of wear, repair, silence, and memory, and that return can become more than maintenance. It can become a symbol of restoration. That is part of the heart of this work. Loopology is not cold science. It is not theory with no pulse. It is science with blood in it. It is structure with feeling. It is method with humanity. It understands that people do not only come to music because they want entertainment. They come to music because they need somewhere to put what they feel. They need a way to process. They need movement. They need release. They need something that comes back around and tells them they are still here. That is what a loop can do when it is handled with purpose. A loop can become a prayer without using religious language. It can become a memory without explaining itself. It can become a heartbeat, a warning, a confession, a foundation, or a way forward. The same sound returning again and again can feel like obsession, meditation, pressure, discipline, or healing, depending on what is placed around it. That is why the creator's responsibility. The loop is powerful because it teaches the listener what to pay attention to. If I repeat something, I'm saying it matters. If I remove it, I'm saying its absence matters. If I bring it back changed, I'm saying transformation matters. That is creative recursion. Loopology is also connected to the idea of stack and sample, the act of layering samples through the workflow, reshaping them and chopping them until they become part of a new creative identity. This is not just stacking for the sake of making things busy. It is stacking with intent. One layer may provide rhythm, another may provide tone, another may provide damage, another may provide warmth. Another may only appear for a second and then disappear, leaving the listener with the feeling that something passed through the track, like a shadow. The goal is not clutter. The goal is meaning. Inside that process, masking becomes more than a mixing issue. It becomes part of the art. Sometimes a sound is not meant to stand fully in the front. Sometimes it is meant to live behind another sound, changing the color without demanding attention. A hidden layer can make a drum feel heavier. A buried texture can make a sample feel older. A quiet tone can make the whole beat feel more haunted, more grounded, or more alive. The listener may not know exactly what they are hearing, but they feel the effect. That is part of the science. Not everything important has to be obvious. This is where loopology separates itself from simple beaking. It is not only about what is heard clearly, it is also about what is implied. It is about the pressure behind the drum, the ghost inside the sample, the movement under the surface, and the way the ear fills in what is not fully revealed. A creator working inside loopology is not only arranging sounds, the creator is arranging attention. The creator is deciding what the listener notices first, what they discover later, and what they only feel in the body. That physical response matters. Music is not only intellectual. A beat can make the head nod before the mind has time to analyze it. Bass can affect the body before the listener names the note. Repetition can create trance. Silence can create tension. Distortion can create urgency. A slightly late hit can create swagger. A slightly early hit can create push. These are not random effects. They are part of the science of feel. Loopology respects that science because feel is where the human truth lives. I want this Patreon to become the place where that truth is documented, not as a classroom yet, not as an academy yet, as a living archive of the method while it is becoming clearer. This is where I can talk about what I am building, why I'm building it, what I hear, what I am testing, what I am learning, and how the system develops. This is where the manifesto can grow. This is where supporters can see the thinking behind the work, instead of only hearing the finished track after the decisions have already been made. That matters because finished music can hide the process. A listener hears the result, but they may never know why one layer was removed, why one loop was allowed to stay imperfect, why a sample was filtered until it sounded warm, why the drums were kept dry, why the bass was tucked in instead of made huge, or why the arrangement left room where another producer might have filled everything in. Loopology opens that process. It lets the method become visible. The cover page says a manifesto because that is exactly what this is. It is a declaration of intent. It says loopology is not just a name placed above a symbol. It is a creative position. It is a way of saying that loops deserve to be studied, respected, and used as more than repetition. It is a way of claiming that sound can return with purpose. It is a way of building a brand around process, not just product. The infinity symbol on the cover matters because it represents the return. But it is not just endlessness. Endless repetition without change can become empty. The symbol matters because it suggests motion, continuity, transformation, and return. On one side, there is the language of playback, control, and activation. On the other side, there is waveform, vibration, and sound itself. In the center, they cross. That crossing is where loopology lives. It lives between control and surrender, between machine and body, between repetition and transformation, between what is planned and what happens when the sound comes back around. That is the brand. That is the method. That is the process. Loopology is for people who need music in their lives in a deeper way. It is for creators who want to understand their own process. It is for beat makers, loopers, sample-based musicians, writers, performers, and listeners who feel that sound can carry more than entertainment. It is for people who know that repetition can become ritual. It is for people who understand that a creative outlet is not a luxury. Sometimes it is a lifeline. Sometimes it is the thing that keeps a person organized inside. Sometimes it is the thing that helps them return to themselves. That is why I believe this work can grow. A brand becomes real when it is rooted in truth. A method becomes useful when it can be practiced. A manifesto manifesto becomes powerful when it names something other people have felt but did not yet have words for. Loopology names the moment when the loop becomes alive. It names the discipline of shaping return. It names the science of creative recursion. This is the origin point. This is where I begin explaining the system from the inside. This is where the process becomes public. This is where the sound becomes language. This is where the loop comes back around and becomes something more than a loop. Loopology is not the end of an idea. It is the return that begins the discovery.
got this. Let's go back a second here. Here we go. 17K views. 1.7K views for this. Recorded 5/18. See what I'm doing here? Just because it existed on my computer doesn't mean I can't save Okay, so Yes, my love. Hang on. What do you need, babe? I'm online. This what is what? You need me to take the garbage out? Did you throw that watermelon away? Oh, man. All right. Closing out for a moment. murdered that completely. Insane. Murdered that. What else does that need? Pimp, pimp, pimp. Pimp, pimp, pimp. I haven't said much this entire live stream. I wanted the music to speak for itself, along with the manifesto. It's awesome. Somebody could get to know you so well. All right, we're going to close this one out. Closing it out.
gdotbennettmusic.